one of the tools to be a successful UX designer is your portfolio. Your portfolio is the designer's bread and butter. It's almost like a litmus test. It shows what you can do, your past experiences, the types of projects you worked on. It really is a good sense of who you are as a designer. With UX being such a growing field, there's a lot more designers getting in. There's a lot of competition. So we're going to go over some tips today on how to stand out in a 2024 job market. First thing, reframe how you're thinking of it. Don't think of it as so much, look what I can do. Look at the flashy things I created. Look at how I was able to do this. Think of it more as, this is how I problem solve. It's more of the journey, not the destination, because different tools that you use, whiteboarding tools, design tools, all of that can change as years go by, but the way that you problem solve and your design thinking, that should always be the same. That's what you want to show. This is how I problem solve, not this is what I've created. Next thing, everybody loves a good story. Everybody loves a good story. Storytelling is so important. You really want to learn and hone in the craft of storytelling. You don't want to just list out steps of what you did, A, B, C, D. You want to kind of give it a bit of structure, give some background, give some context, why things were chosen this way. That is really what hiring managers, design managers are going to remember. They're familiar with the steps. What they're not familiar with is the story that you are telling. Almost think of it as any kind of story. You want to set the stage. For example, let's set the scene. In the fast-paced world of e-commerce, our challenge was to enhance the shopping experience for mobile users on XYZ's retail platform. That is kind of setting the scene. Next, you can bring in your characters, which are your user personas. Okay, let's say your persona is Kira. She is a young professional. She lives in the city. She commutes on the train and light rail. While she's commuting, she's always on her mobile phone, and that is the peak time for her to be shopping. Okay, so do you see what I'm trying to say here? I'm not going to get into all the breakdown, but that's the kind of storytelling that's going to be memorable. Numbers don't matter. There is not, in my opinion, a certain number of case studies you need to have in your portfolio. 5 is not the magical number. 7 is definitely not the magical number. 1, you don't want to just have 1. You really want to focus on quality over quantity. I would rather you guys put 3 really solid, even 2 solid case studies versus 5 kind of incomplete ones. One thoughtfully structured project is going to go a long way, because chances are they're not looking at all 5, 7. They're probably looking at 1, maybe 2. So that's why whatever you're showing in there needs to be your best work, needs to be the banger. You know what I mean? It needs to be the one that you really want people to look at. I think junior designers get caught up in the quantity because you want it to come across as, this is how many projects that I've worked on. Look at all this experience. But that's really not going to matter to them. You want to focus on what's important. You don't want to show, like in your 1 to 2 really good case studies, you don't want to show every single screen that you designed. You want to focus on what's prominent. If you design a mobile app, show the key screens of the mobile app. They probably don't need to see the login. They probably don't need to see the sign in, sign out, the checkout page, those kinds of things. What they do want to see is where you solve the problem, and then make sure you put the emphasis on that. Add a personal touch. There are hundreds and hundreds of portfolios that these managers and hiring teams are looking at. These kinds of personal touches can help you be memorable and stand out. Now, I'm not saying put in your whole detailed about me. I was born here. I moved here at 10. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for little tidbits, personal anecdotes of who you are, so maybe they can remember you. Me, Stephanie, I remember my portfolio, I put in, I have an English bulldog, I'm a crazy dog mom, like things like that. And that came up in one of my interviews. So you can talk about pets, any interesting hobbies. Do you moonlight as a chef on weekends? Like anything that's going to be like, oh, that's really interesting. That's the kind of stuff I want you to include that you feel like somebody's going to remember you by. Keep it short, keep it sweet. Think more like icebreaker fun facts. If you're bilingual, if you studied anywhere kind of specific, kind of interesting that relates to it, if you have any prior history with wherever you're applying, these are the kinds of things that I think can really just keep them thinking about you past the interview. Ask yourself, what kind of designer are you? Is there a common theme that runs through the thread of your portfolio in terms of the case studies that you work on? Are there certain challenges that you're more inclined to tackle? These certain things that if you know about yourself, can really help you tailor your portfolio as well as your job search. Consider your strength as a designer. You like to tackle challenges that are related to user engagement and adoption. Are you somebody that likes numbers? Are you good with data? Is that kind of where you lean more? Or are you somebody that really likes the heuristics and the aesthetics of the interface, and that's kind of more where you lean? The more that you can really know about yourself, you're going to be better set up to apply for certain jobs, and your portfolio is going to reflect that. I think it'd be really powerful if I'm a hiring manager and then I'm looking at somebody's portfolio and I see the consistent theme. I see in Stephanie's portfolio that she is really passionate about user engagement and adoption. There are analytics in every single case study. There are adoption numbers, whether good or bad, in every case study. So these are the kinds of things that I think will really help you stand out amongst the sea of some of the more standard portfolios that are being pushed out. Get your portfolio critiqued. We as designers should not be the sole person looking at this before you're putting it out there. This is where you can rely on friends, families, any design mentors that you have. There are a lot of resources out there. You could even put it out on LinkedIn or in a Discord group, anything like that, to really just get other people's eyes on it. For any, spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, any of those like little checks. But also, if this makes sense, am I missing any kind of information? Did I leave something off? You wanted to get it critiqued now before you're presenting it as your best work. Having your portfolio stand out is just one piece to become a successful UX designer. Check out this video here to learn about other requirements that are necessary to become a designer in 2024.